Hello everyone and welcome to the studio here in Northumberland. And today I'm going to do a big watercolour, and this one is all about atmosphere and mood because there's not a lot in the picture itself. It's known as the Causeway, and it's the Causeway over to the island here in Northumberland. It's actually Lindisfarne or Holy Island. That's the Causeway itself. As you can see, there's not that much in it, apart from what we're going to do with it, which is going to be different to that. That's it when the tide's actually in. There's a little white hut there in the distance. So it's not going to be like that either. What's it going to be like, I hear you ask? I don't know. I shall make it up as I go along. But I know this place, so I know what it looks like. What I am going to do is a quick drawing. And I'm going to focus in on the hut, and it's off centre, about there. Yeah, about there. Don't worry about any mistaken lines. Paint over them. There, like so. The pencil I'm using, of course, as ever. Actually, I was going to say IKEA, but it's not. This one's Screwfix. Just any old cheapie. Any old cheapie that you can nick. There, on top of that, we've got a roof, which I'm going to change slightly. There's a bit of artistic license going on in this one. Then I'll see a bit of it there on that side as well. Then come down there. See, I've already changed it. Make a painting fit with what you want. Don't try and replicate the photograph. Otherwise you may as well just have the photograph. And I've got a window in there. This little building on stilts, by the way, is there for when people go against all advice and try to drive over the causeway to the island when the tide's coming in, and then they get stranded. So they climb the steps up to this, and then the rescue services come and call them out. Come and pull them out, sorry. So they're just wasting a lot of people's time. There's a lot of idiots that try and do it every year. And they always get caught out by Mother Nature. Now, as you can see from that view, it's really quite boring because it's flat on there. So I've put it at an angle slightly. Got the leg coming out here. And then on the other side of the building, we've got the steps that come out. Like so. Now you see, I've changed that picture quite a bit to what's on the actual photograph. Now, behind that, coming from that, sorry, we've got the posts at the side of the road, which stop about there. Then on the other side of the road, about there is where the tarmac runs out and it becomes just an old track. Here we've got a bit of grass and the road in the middle. And now that needs to snake off over there. And that's all going to be in the distance there. Now, over in the distance, I've got the line here. Which is not very straight. I'll straighten that up a little bit, that's better. And on top of there, we have the sand dunes of Holy Island. And once you get onto the island, you drive for about another mile, and Lindisfarne Castle is over there, which you can't actually see from this end. Now, one thing that the place is really famous for as well is either side, just bring this down a little bit, either side we've got posts actually out in the sea, in the shallow bits of the sea. There you go. And this marks the old Pilgrims' Causeway. The pilgrims used to walk because this place was, there's an old monastery there as well, and it was inhabited by a lot of monks. And there used to be lots of pilgrimages, well, I think there still are, over to Holy Island. Over here, we've got the road. The road is like on a bit of a mound. Here is where it's all water, but we've got some, when the tide's out, we've got sand banks here and there. So I shall leave where I'm going to have water and where I'm going to have sand. But as I said, over here we've got some fairly tall posts. Bit taller, that's better. Don't have these all straight and perfect. Have them at different angles, bending over a little bit. These have been here for a lot of years. And now they actually mark where it's safe to walk when the tide's out. Ooh, don't like the way that's joined that. So I shall end that there. We won't have a post there, we will have one there. And then they kind of like start and get quite a lot shorter as they're going further away. That's your recession. That's taking you into the picture. Now they're curling back on themselves as they go further away. And that will more or less do for my drawing. Now, time for the sky on this one. And this painting is all about the sky. As you know, my palette is always a real mess, and it's been on the go for about 30 years. That's my palette. And that's what I use every day of my life. But, however, today, we had an email. We get lots and lots of emails and feedback from YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff. Had an email from some guy asking me who bought all the equipment and all the materials he needed from my e-shop. And he was asking how he should lay out his palette. And so rather than type out a long email answering him back, I just squeezed out all the colours into a little plastic palette and told him that that's how I organise mine. Therefore, being a tight-fisted Yorkshireman, waste not, want not, I'm going to use this paint up. So, now, time for the sky wash. I've done the drawing, so I can get rid of the reading glasses now. And I'm using my 1.5 inch flat wash brush. And before any paint, lots and lots of water. Now, as you may have seen on the photograph, and the photograph is something that I've now put away and I won't be using it again. But as you saw on the photograph, that little cabin thing is white. Don't be worried about it. It's easy enough to go around with a big flat brush like that. But if you can't go around it, just paint through it and then take the paint out again. And I shall show you how to do that in a minute. Now, wash out, squeeze out and mop up. And the first colour here, a little bit of yellow ochre. Like so. It seems so odd using a different palette, because my palette is like an extension of my arm. It just sits there. Now I've got, I'll mop up again first. Now I've got ultramarine blue, that's French ultramarine blue, with a touch of burnt sienna. Bit of that in there. Bit more blue. There, that's better. That's ultramarine blue with a touch of burnt sienna, and that's fairly light and weak there. Go into the yellow ochre, don't stop when one colour meets the other. Otherwise you have a hard edge where colours meet. Mop up again. Now, again, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. This time a heck of a lot darker and stronger. Look at that. Oh God, that's scary. Don't be afraid of the dark. Now, as I say, go around that. Like so. When you're using a flat brush, it's easy enough to go around. Again, I'm going to darken that even more. What you've got to remember with watercolours, and when you've got as much water on as I have here, it's going to dry about 30% lighter than when you put it on. So allow for that. There. Look how scary that is. And a couple of little bits coming up here. Now wash out, squeeze out. I'm going to mop up first. When you start and cover up your drawing, and there's bits that you want to see, don't worry about it, because as it dries out, that drawing will reveal itself again. Wash out, squeeze out. Let's have some clouds in here now. All I'm doing is wash out, squeeze out, and suck some paint out, look. Very, very simple. But have it done while it's still good and wet. A bit more here. And some more down here. Now this is starting to dry on me. So in that case, now is the time to more or less leave it alone. Just a little bit there. And a little bit more there. When I said leave it alone, I didn't actually mean it. Now, if this were a light blue, fluffy, clouded sky, you wouldn't want that running down. But for an overcast sky, it's nice to have your sky coming down to your distance. And now just let it dry. Now that's good and dry. And as you can see, it's dried quite a lot lighter than when I put it on. And I've got to say, I did that with my 1.5 inch flat Aquafine brush. Again, I'm still using the Aquafine brushes. They just hold so much water. But now I've changed from that to my 3/4 inch Aquafine brush. Again, another flat one. And I'm starting off with the sand dunes in the distance. And it's always nice and very effective in a painting to have light bits underneath the dark bits. See? A bit there. And that's just yellow ochre. Down like so. Carefully around my building again. And a few bits going down here. Very, very simply done. Don't fiddle. This is quite a long way off, don't forget. Now, a little bit of burnt sienna. Russety type colours on the sand dunes here. Leaving some of the yellow ochre shine through here and there. And a few bits there. Now, just blue. Ultramarine blue, the same blue as the sky. And a few bits amongst it, and bringing it down to the base there, look. And basically what I'm doing with that corner of the brush there, as I'm dropping the blue in, is I'm splitting dunes apart. Bit of blue in between each one, kind of thing. A little bit there as well. Up to the building. Of course that side of the building you're going to have as the lightest side. Across the bottom and a few little bits there. Now, just with more water, clean damp brush, and softening those colours together a little bit. Merging one colour into the other. But leaving the light, the nice light yellow ochre showing on the top here and there. Now a little bit more yellow ochre, and just bring that across in front of that far distant bit of land there. Because that is an extension of that. Now a little bit of blue with a tiny, tiny touch of alizarin crimson. And that I'm just going to drop in for the far distant bit there. Bring that across a bit. distance done. Very, very simply. Now remember when I was painting that sky, I said don't worry too much if you can't go around the building, because you can take it out again afterwards. This is now obviously all good and dry, but I've got some sky coming to there, so I want to take it out. So just with my clean damp brush, my 3/4 inch brush, look how easy is that, just take it out. Watercolours has got this reputation for being the most difficult medium, because once you make a mistake you can't put it right. It's an absolute nonsense. If it goes wrong, wash it out, do it again. Or paint on top with a darker, stronger colour. There. Easy peasy. Now, I'm just going to drop in a little bit of water in the far distance here and here. And so I want a touch of ultramarine blue, because that's the same blue as my sky. Don't change your blues for anything natural within the picture. Tiny touch of hooker's green and a tiny touch of burnt sienna. There. And all I'm doing, fairly weak to start with, over here. And come further forward there. Going through the post, don't worry about those. And a little bit here. And that's the water in the far distance, so that I don't have to carefully paint that around my building once I've got the building in. Get that out of the way now. A few bits there. I can go through the steps, that doesn't matter. A little bit there and a little bit there. A little bit of that, a little bit of that. Easy peasy. And now, once I put my foreground water in, I can go into the distance water again. So I'll just pop a little bit there. I just didn't like the way that had dried actually, so that's why I'm going back in here and there. That's better. And now I'll leave that for a second. Now I'm starting with the building, the little cabin, and I've changed to my number 8 round brush. Again, my Aquafine brush, number 8. And I've got a little bit of blue with a tiny touch of burnt sienna into it. Anything white, because you remember that cabin was white, anything white in shadow, have a touch of blue with it. So I'm going to go there with that. Just filling in. Actually, that's a little bit strong. I'm looking at it as it's going on and thinking it's a bit strong. So I'm just going to put more water into my brush and merge that in. There. That's better. Moving the colour around. And we're going to have some planks on that afterwards, because it's made of boards. Planks of wood. But I'll do that afterwards when it's dried. Now, that side I'm going to leave white. Here I've got some burnt sienna. Now, if you remember from the photograph, it was a grey bluey roof. This is going to be slightly red roofed. It's called artistic license. A bit there. Now, I need to make that burnt sienna stronger now. A little bit less water into it. It's stronger for this side. And again, fill in. Down to the bottom there. And again, I just want to straighten that edge up a little bit. That's better. Now I'll leave that for a second and go underneath to its posts. So I've got raw umber this time, mixed with a touch of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. So I've made a Van Dyke brown there. What a lovely colour that is. Bit there. And then come downwards with the posts. The legs that it's standing on. Like any other painting, what's going to make this come to life afterwards is the shadow that I put onto it. For the steps, look, so simple. Now, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixed will give me a nice black. Don't use manufactured black. Wherever you put it, you're going to kill that area stone dead. That's ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. There we go, nice black. Another nice way of mixing black is Hooker's green and alizarin crimson. That will give you a lovely black as well. That's just for the windows. They're not windows, they're holes. So, and you notice all this fiddly little work I'm doing with a big number 8 round brush. Another one there. Because the Aquafine brushes are so usable. You can use every part and every angle of them. You see how this painting starts to come to life now as soon as I get the building in. Now, with the black again, but I've changed my rigger brush, my number 4 rigger brush, I'm just going to have a few squiggly lines here and there. That's a technical term for you. Remember, you're not building this thing. You don't need to do it every single plank. Let's get a few squiggly lines here and there. And a few on that side. Going downwards slightly. Bit of a diagonal angle look. Now back to that black mix. But this time, look, into that black, I'm going to put a touch of alizarin crimson. A bit more blue. And that's the colour for my shadow. Ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and burnt sienna. And I'm going to put that first where the roof meets the building. Bit there. Take it out there. And a little bit there. And again, bring that across. Now I'll some underneath there. And to the right hand side of the legs. Just coming straight down. Now wash out, squeeze out. Actually, I don't like that top line there. I'm going to make that come down more. There, that's better. Wash out, squeeze out, and just with a clean damp brush, soften that down a bit, look. And soften it down there. And a little bit darker there. Now that's dry enough, I'm going to start with the land in the middle distance and a few bits of sandbank and stuff here and there. And I've changed to my 3/4 inch brush again. And I've got a little bit of Charles Evans sand, as you would imagine. Sand, I need some sand. But some other colours as well. But to start with, a bit of sand. There we go. And I'm just dropping some of that here and there, like that. And we'll have a couple of bits here. Bit here. I'm just making up where these are. But as I say, I do know the place fairly well. And so, I know what it looks like in most conditions. Twice a day this place gets cut off by the tides. And it's got to be said, I always get the feeling, because I've been there when the tide's in and you can't get off. But I spent my time in the pub, so that was all right. But you get the feeling a bit like, remember that film with Peter Cushing, The Wicker Man? You get the feeling that it's that kind of place. Don't quote me on that. Now, a little bit of yellow ochre. Whilst the sand's still wet, a couple of touches here and there. Just a few bits, like so. Now, a little bit of light red. Light red, as I always say, is not a red made lighter, so don't take your alizarin crimson and put loads of water into it and think you've made light red. You haven't. You've made your red lighter. There's a difference. Put a light red there. That just warms up the scene a little bit. Now, just with a clean damp brush, merge those colours in a little bit. Like so. Easy peasy. Now, a little bit of hooker's green and yellow ochre, because either side of the road, as it goes across, the track as it goes across, you've got grass. So hooker's green, yellow ochre, loads of yellow ochre into it. As I always say, never use hooker's green by itself. But as a mixer, it's about the best colour in your palette. A few bits of green there. And this comes around here. A few bits of green there. Up to where the road's going to go. A bit more there. And actually I just thought I'm going to have some of that over there as well. Shrubs. Yeah, quite like that now. A little bit on that side with the sharp edge of the brush lock. And that's starting to create the road as it goes off into the distance. We'll have a little bit of that there as well. To start with. Now, clean damp brush, soften some of that down a little bit, look, just with a clean damp brush. Bring a little bit onto the sand then. It's amazing the difference that a few touches of water make, which is good, seeing as how it's watercolour. And a little bit of softening there as well. More green to bring that round like so. And now a few tiny touches of burnt sienna here and there. Just a bit. Don't want much. Just here and there. all while it's still wet. Let the colours soften in together. It's a lovely feel when all the colours merge. A bit here. Now I'm going to paint the road in, so it's out of the way. And it's just been pointed out to me by Gail, my camera person, she who shall be obeyed and knows everything, that it wasn't Peter Cushing in The Wicker Man. It was actually Christopher Lee. But she didn't know that either. Ha, ha, ha. Now I've got light red and ultramarine blue. I'm just going to pop that in there from side to side. If I put the road in first, it doesn't matter how much mess I make either side because I'm going to cover it up with the grass. But you can imagine if I'd painted all the grass in either side of the road first, I'd then have to be very careful when I painted my road in. Doing it this way, get that in first. Then it doesn't matter about the mess. Side to side like so. As I say, that's ultramarine blue and the blue's light red. I want to put more water in my brush. Put it in there. Through there. Then it goes off around there. And back here. There. Now once that's dried, I can paint with impunity. But you didn't know I knew words like that. There, we'll let that dry. Now, whilst that's drying to itself, I'm going to paint a little bit of foreground water in here. Again, it's the same mix, ultramarine blue, touch of hooker's green, touch of burnt sienna. And plenty of water into that. I'm just going to put that in there. You notice this time I haven't painted the reflections in first. That's because I want them to stick out a bit. Some could say it's because I forgot. But it's not. I do want them to stick out a bit more. But coming up to here. I'm just deciding as I'm going along exactly where I want water. A little bit there as well. And a little bit there. I'm going to have some more grasses down there. And now I'm just going to wash out, squeeze out and suck a bit more water out here and there. Look, just with the sharp of the damp 3/4 inch wash brush. Sucking a bit of paint out. A bit there. And a little bit. Now I've changed my round brush, my number 8 round. I'm just deciding where I want bits here. That's a little bit more water there. Leave a few bits of the under paper showing through here and there. A bit of white. And a little bit there. I'm basically just filling in at this stage. A few bits there. Again, this will have shadow on it eventually. Now to the posts. Actually, before the posts, I'm just going to put a little bit of, it's almost like a curb bit, raised bit, where the road comes here. Like so. And a bit there. Notice the angles. whilst I'm in with that raw umber, I'm going to put a touch of blue in it now to darken it slightly more, and bring these down more at this side here. There. Now, still with the number 8 round brush, I've got these posts, that's good and dry now, I've got these posts here, the shorter posts. Gone quiet there for a minute. And those there. And a bit stronger there, just to end it. Now to those big posts there. What I'm going to use for those is my rigger brush, my number 4 rigger. So I'm going to start off first with a little bit of yellow ochre, good and strong. And this is just in the first few. So excuse my back slightly. There. And as I said earlier when I was drawing them, don't have them all perfectly straight. Have some of them leaning at different angles. They've been there a long, long time. And what I've done for the painting is I've brought these in slightly towards the road, because in actual fact they're over here, but that wouldn't help the composition at all. Like I say, make the picture suit what you want out of it. Now to black. Actually no, I've changed my mind on that. We'll have raw umber with blue into it, so it's a very, very dark brown. There. And that's going in to the right hand side of where I've just put the yellow ochre. Leaving just a little bit of yellow ochre showing here and there. Rigger brush is a lovely brush. And these, the number 4, Aquafine, number 4 rigger, they hold a heck of a lot of water for such a small brush, for such a skinny brush. Now these are just the brown now. As I said before, they now turn in on themselves and go off into the distance. Now, whilst I'm in with that nice dark brown, I'm going to bring them down here as well, look. Wobbly line on that. Okay, it's into big foreground bits of grasses and stuff now. So I'm starting off with a little bit of, I think I'm going to have some sand first. A bit of sand here. Underneath there. Now, if you remember, for the actual sand bits there, I put yellow ochre on top of the sand. Now, this time, I'm going to put raw umber on top of the sand. A bit darker. Wash out, squeeze out, and just with a clean damp brush, I'm just going to soften that in. There'll be some big shadows on that afterwards. Now, grass. So, hooker's green and yellow ochre again, but there's going to be a couple of different shades of green here. So, starting off with hooker's green and yellow ochre, plenty of yellow ochre into it. There. And just starting, bash this on. Bash it on, not a technical term. Now here, where it meets the water, look, flick up a bit. Take it up to the road. And bring down again. A bit of that down here. Now some of that over here. And I really am just bashing it on. Over there, that's better. And again, a few flicky bits. And a few flicky bits there. Now, hooker's green and burnt sienna. So it's an altogether darker green. Look at that. Lovely green. Hooker's green. Plenty of burnt sienna. There. Yummy green, that one is. That's all that down here. Just bish bash bosh. And that now makes the road. And again, start and merge that. A bit more water. Start and merge that into the lighter green that I put on. So it's more of a slightly more gentle transition between the two colours. A few flicky bits there. And a little bit of that over here as well. Flick up again. But again, quite a lot darker in the foreground altogether. And a few flicky bits there. And just edge that a little bit here with that darker green. There. Now we're into shadows next. Now it's time for the final shadows. Again, it's that mix, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson and burnt sienna, like a dark aubergine colour. And I'm using my flat 3/4 inch brush. There was a fly in here buzzing around, so I've just opened the door. And the bird song outside is absolutely lovely. They're going mad out there. And just as I said that, they've gone quiet. Now, in with the shadow. Nice and strong. We've got this light bit here, so obviously the light's coming from there. So nice and strong underneath there. Now you can hear the birds. I wasn't lying. Bit there. You see how that really ties that building down to the ground. Now a little bit of shadow at a different angle coming out there across the road. And I'm using just the corner of my flat brush Bring that across the road there like so. And that really makes sense of that building, having some shadow from it. That's better. There. Now I'm going to have a little bit of shadow here as well from that little bit. But also we'll have some shadows from the post and up across the sandbank. A little bit there. What a lot of people forget as well is, I mean, there's hardly any water underneath these posts really, but if you've got water and you've got a post coming out of water, don't forget shadow goes on water as well, not just reflection. Right. Now edge that where it comes down to the water, just with a few touches here. Now I shall soften these in a second. And a little bit here. I'm just looking around, seeing where I want to put some. Casting around the picture. A little bit of shadow from those steps. Now I'm just going to soften here and there. Bring it up into the sand a little bit. All with that big brush. Such a lovely brush, this one. I would say it's probably the one I use most of all. And I'll sometimes do entire pictures with just that one brush. A few bits over there. Now, soften here. Softening that down into the sand. And finally, a bit more water into that same mix. And you'll notice how this grass here got darker here in the foreground to there, and also there. So I'm going to have some shadow across there. That's a nice lead in for the eye. Light to dark, or dark to light. A few bits of shadow from those posts there. And a bit darker there. Better. Now, if I go to my rigger brush and have a few distant seagulls or whatever, mixing black for that, ultimately blue and burnt cyan, and just have a few ticks in the sky. There's one. I shall have three. Because it's funny how 2 doesn't look right. Neither does 4. 4 would have 1, 3 or 5. There, all I've got to do now is take the tape off. And there we go, a very effective, I think, finished painting. The paints I've used for this painting are the Daler-Rowney artist quality paint. Quite often in the YouTube videos I use Aquafine paints, the students quality paints, but for this one I've used the artist quality paints. Very, very strong pigment of paint. The paper I've used is the Langton Rough, but I've just got a much bigger sheet. They're demonstrators sheets. And as you can see by the painting, the finished painting, there's no cockling and buckling with this. Once I take the tape off, it's always going to dry out flat. It will never mess you about, this paper. So hopefully you'll enjoy having a go at this one. And don't be too worried about that dark sky. Make it good and dark. Slap it on, it will dry lighter. See you soon. Bye.